Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our presentation today on revenue cycle management. Today, we're going to discuss the latest ways on how a smooth running and efficient cycle can benefit your practice. And we believe 2023 will be another fast-paced year. It's already February tomorrow, which is hard to believe. And therefore, maximizing repeatable processes and effective operations at the practice is more critical than ever. And additionally, ways that patients can fulfill their financial responsibilities will be a huge weight off their shoulders and is a significant way to increase cash flow and stability at the practice. So as an introduction, we are here from Rectangle Health today, and our mission is to simplify the business side of healthcare. And what that really means is that we concentrate on the operational efficiency for healthcare systems, their leaders, and management. We're here to help your organizations thrive administratively, operationally, and financially. Now, revenue cycle management, or RCM, is at the forefront of what we do. So today we'll cover its benefits, what it means to you, and the ways that we recommend updating and leveling up to meet the ever-changing needs of your healthcare, your practice, and patients. I'm Michelle Dowling, and I head up our marketing team here at Rectangle Health. I've been working in healthcare technology for almost 10 years. And having these conversations, holding these types of webinars, and writing content about the meaningful ways that we make the day-to-day easier at the practice is really important to us, and connecting with you all and your teams mean a lot to us. So I hope you find this information that we're about to share very helpful. And today I'm accompanied by my colleague, James Swan, Director of Enterprise Sales here at Rectangle Health. Hi, James. Thanks for joining today.
Hi. Thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
Awesome. So let's dive right into it. So some of you already may be very familiar with the term RCM, and how it occurs at your practice is completely dependent upon the way you operate. You know, that whole saying about every practice is a snowflake, if you will. And that means that there could be 7 steps, 10 steps. I've even heard of 13 steps in this RCM cycle, which is that process that tracks revenue from patients from the initial appointment or encounter with the healthcare system to their final payment of balance. So no matter if it's 7 or 13 steps, there are just challenges and barriers that every practice face when we consider what's efficiency. And some of those are include inefficient manual processes. So think about when you have to walk from one end of the office to another to manage payments or paperwork, or you're sending manual bills, or you're waiting at the desk to process a payment at the end of the day, or you're doing some of those very, very tedious tasks. Another one is paperwork. Raise your hand if you're still mailing paper statements. We know that this process just adds more and more days in accounts receivable. And in many cases, some practices are waiting up to 60 or 90 days in order to get a patient's full balance paid. And that's a lot of time to wait after getting services rendered. We know increased out-of-pocket costs continues to rise, no surprise here. I think there was even a report that stated it's increased 92% in the last decade, which is just unbelievable. There's limited staff and shortages. I'm sure that you can attest how challenging it's been over the last 18 to 24 months, and over half of practices, research says, are unable to hire for open positions. And finally, shifting patient expectations, this constant evolving of digital options, managing healthcare expenses, the way they manage everyday business, everyday life. We know that over 60% of consumers want emails or text notifications about appointments and payments, and more than half of them want access to payment plans. So as we see this transformation continue to digital processes, it will certainly affect RCM in a very positive way. But James, am I missing anything on this list?
Yeah, I think that was a pretty all-encompassing overview. The one thing I did want to add, I think why this is such a relevant topic in today's environment is the uncontrollables, thinking macroeconomic headwinds, thinking some of those staffing challenges that individual offices simply could not have necessarily seen coming. Those are what's putting somewhat of a strain on our RCM and putting such a hyper focus on the need to really nail down some of these processes to ensure that we're making it as simple as possible for not only staff, but also patients to take care of, whether it be pre-care, point of care, and then post-care, obviously through that revenue cycle. So excited to dive into all of it, but I think that this is incredibly timely, to say it politely.
Absolutely. And that's the main reason why we wanted to have the webinar, right? It's the latest information on the practices, opportunities to increase cash flow, to think about those trends that James mentioned that affect the cycle. That is so important and critical to the practice because it happens every single day for every single patient. And so, James, are there any other trends that you're seeing as you talk to healthcare leaders today that you would add to things that are top of mind?
Yeah, I think going back, and obviously COVID, thankfully being almost through it, obviously going back at the beginning of COVID, it really put the stress to really focus on contactless options. And whether those were pre-care, post-care, there was this huge rush to try to, hey, let's bring contactless solutions into the RCM environment. And then since that time, we've had economic stimulus, we've had staffing issues, we've seen now some of those staffing challenges maybe start to right themselves, but what that's come with is higher costs across the board, whether it's through supplies and or human capital, while still having a stagnant cost structure when it comes to healthcare out of pocket or healthcare costs. So what it's required or what it's resulted in is really, again, this need to make it as simple as possible to collect payments, to ensure that revenue is not only going in the chair for appointments, but also we're able to capitalize and collect on those things after they're taken care of. So it's definitely a complex solution and a complex equation, but we're here to hopefully help and share some solutions around that.
Completely agree. So we'd love to hear from you. What issue, we take a quick polling question from the audience and you'll see a window pop up. If you could think about what you would solve if you were to improve or even put new automation in place, what do you think you could resolve? Staffing, any type of maybe manual effort, excuse me, from the staff, reducing expenses, or even eliminating some of the manual items that you do every day. So wait for a couple of seconds to let everyone answer those questions. Wow, that's great. So automation really will help people eliminate those manual tasks, which is excellent because there are a lot of them. Thank you. And we'll talk a little bit about exactly how we can help there. But what we do know today is that there are a lot of companies that are looking to enhance the experience at the practice in such a way so that they can look at these three things: issues with staff and labor, struggles with margin or cash flow, and then making those strategic moves to increase technology or automation at the practice. So we see these top three as critical. And we said that when we did some polling, we looked at a stat that said almost 50% of our healthcare practices are having an issue and they have shortages that they need to address. And they're looking to outsource some of these processes, and then some are turning to technology that we'll get into in a little bit in a couple of slides to help streamline the processes. And then we always are looking for ways to reduce expenses. And RCM and billing sometimes happens to be one place that is either viewed to make changes in a positive and or negative way. So we're hoping that some of the things that we share will give you some ideas on how to help, reduce the number of days in AR and collect patient payments more quickly and efficiently. And then I think one of the most surprising stats that I've seen is that so many of our companies are looking to use technology as an answer, like you all mentioned in your polling question. That's something that is very, very important. And there's a lot of good information out there about what you can do to make sure you make good decisions, because sometimes we add technology and we hope that it's going to help us. And sometimes it goes unused, or it's very difficult to train on, but we definitely will share some of our findings on that. Okay, so we just wanted to take another polling question to see how you think that the revenue cycle is most, what you're most concerned with at your practice. Will it help you to gather more data more efficiently? Is it something that maybe you want to pivot to for scheduling, or is it something you want to optimize in your billing or payments processes? Ah, wow. 100%. I wasn't expecting 100%. That's amazing. Wow, everyone wants help in the billing and the payment side, so you're in the right place. One of the things that's clear is that we know we face significant challenges, and inflation's making everything more expensive. Reimbursements are flat, laborers climbing, staff shortages, high turnover. These are significant. And as you know, we think about insurers continuing to shift all of the financial burden, or a lot of the financial burden, to patients, and consumers become one of the biggest, essentially, payer groups. This means the need for RCM is even more important to get you data, insights, predictive tools to reduce claim denials, and really make sure that cash flow is happening at the practice. And since the term RCM can be so broad, we bucket it into these 4 different components that James and I will talk about next. One is essentially how consumerism has affected patient engagement, how an ecosystem type approach, or looking at things holistically at the practice, including an integrated workflow, will really help you, offering financial options to your patients. And then finally, how to utilize technology to solve the problems that we just talked about, from patient payments and billing to automating those manual tasks. So James and I are going to break down each one of these, starting with consumerism. And, you know, we've heard about this, like you said in the very beginning, James, you know, COVID accelerated everything. And I remember at one point, you know, I just went to get my eyes checked to get new glasses. And when I posed the question to them, would you ever see yourself going to digital forms 2 years ago? They said, absolutely not. My patients won't use it. There's no way. I went in on Monday and they literally handed me, you know, an iPad to do all my forms online. So something fundamentally shifted. This has become more of a wave. What do you think, and what changes have you seen happening while you talk to clients out there about the way they think about consumerism and this shift?
Yeah, and I think healthcare has this unfortunate association with kind of being late to the game when it comes to adopting technology. And for all the negatives that came with COVID, I think that one of the positives was really this need to adopt technologies to help with consumerization. When we think about some of the other verticals that consumers or patients are engaging with, we think of retail experiences, we think of those online experiences, we think of really the consumers becoming more and more digital, with their phone becoming their wallet, and all these changes that are happening. And what that's kind of caused is really what used to be a simplistic bucket, especially when we focus on kind of the post-care collections component. Obviously, that seems like what our individuals on this call are interested in. It used to be pretty simple. Hey, there was a remaining balance following a procedure. We shipped them out a paper statement, and we hoped to collect that payment potentially 60, 90 days later. And one of the great things about technology is that's no longer the expectation. Patients expect to potentially receive text messages, receive an e-statement. They expect to store cards on file at the point of care, to be able to leverage and charge those cards for services provided. So one thing that I hear from time to time is, these certain technologies, whether it be using card on file or online bill pay, text to pay, bulk text, our patients may not buy into those things. And the one thing I'll say is, technology is supposed to be additive in nature. We're not asking, when you bring on new technologies, that every single patient needs to adopt everything that you bring on. It's supposed to be ideal for a segment of your patient population. So what used to be, hey, 50% called in and made a phone call to make a payment, and 50% just came into the office to pay or send in a paper check. Now it's, how do we meet 10% or 15% of our patient demographics needs? And then how do we bring another technology or the same technology with a different offering for an additional 50%, and kind of building out this case and this whole ecosystem to make it as simple as possible to collect the payments of every single one of our different patients and their unique and frankly desired expectations. And I'll speak to really that thought process. Giving optionality is the expectation today. Consumers not only expect great customer experience and a phenomenal patient experience when they interact with the physicians, but patients more than ever before are shopping these experiences for some of these ancillary offerings. The ability to check in pre-care via text or an email, smart scheduling potentially. If we need to change an appointment at 10 p.m., do I have that opportunity as a patient? Those are just small little things that we can provide, not just we being Rectangle, but the market and all of the offices on today's conversation, to make the patient experience just a little bit better. And what we're going to find is that's going to dramatically have a positive impact on our revenue cycle down the road. So I know I said a lot there. There's hopefully a few little nuggets, but I'll kick it back to you, Michelle, if there's an additional question.
Yeah, there's, I think one point you made is really important, and it puts a little bit of stress on the practice, because if we're adding technology, then it's managing that technology and those vendors. So one of the questions that we have for the group who's on the phone today is, how many vendors are you utilizing to manage your current processes? Meaning, so if you have implemented an online scheduling or appointment setting soft technology, and you are also sending text messages, or maybe you aren't, but as you think about adding these vendors to help you make things more efficient, or actually swap out some things, right? Paper forms for digital forms, it puts a little bit of stress when we talk about managing all of that. So we're curious to see how many vendors people think that they're using currently. 0 to 3 and 4 to 5. Okay, awesome. So this is one thing that James mentioned while he was talking, was thinking about how to manage those multiple systems in an integrated or interconnected way, allowing the practice to find those opportunities to continue to enhance productivity or engage across the entire patient journey. So when we have done this, when we can increase and improve processes, we know that it makes staff morale go up, and that positively impacts patient satisfaction. So James, it seems that healthcare leaders are championing these changes in culture to ensure that staff has access to more of these systems, to touch more of their patients the way that they want to be communicating in with the practices. What resources do they need, or what do you think is important for them to think about when they're thinking about information flowing smoothly in an ecosystem?
Yeah, it's obviously a great point. We never want to bring in technology that's going to cause either a break in the system or cause additional work for our staff members. And really, as I think through building out this ecosystem or this tech stack, it's really focusing on who are the right partners who have an understanding of what it takes to be successful in, whether it's pre-care, whether it's post-care collections, whatever that specific use case is, or potentially it's the entire revenue cycle process like we're talking about today. And it's understanding what is the potential lift on our organization to bring in these technologies. And then from there, what is that going to provide us? What are the efficiencies we're going to take away from that? Because I think everyone likely will agree, a small little speed bump to create significant efficiencies for years to come is well worth that small window of time in which there is a little bit of a learning curve or some potential heartburn around getting everybody up to speed within the staff. And what we typically find more times than not is some of those individuals who were resistant to change are our biggest champions, because not only did they kind of really vet it out to say, hey, I don't know that this is going to solve our problems, but I'll speak to my specific example with Rectangle Solution Practice Management Bridge. Once we go and improve not only our knowledge of what we can provide, but really solve their challenges and solve their unique expectations and their own opportunities, we have a client for life. So I think that the couple of things to just in summation that thought, make sure you know exactly who you're communicating with, clearly understand the value prop and what they're going to be able to provide to you, and then ensure that they can and have done what they tell you. Because I think it's critically important. Again, one thing that you had said earlier, Michelle, is there's more vendors in the space than ever before.
Yeah.
One critical differentiation is everyone, in my mind, everyone is a vendor until you prove to be a partner. And that's something that I hold very, very near and dear to my heart. I tell everyone that I talk to that I want to earn the right to be your partner, because I think that comes with a very different level of trust and frankly, comes with a different level of having built that relationship. So again, I can get on a tangent and I talk a lot, so I hope that answered the question there, Michelle.
Absolutely. And I think in our next slide, we wanted to talk a little bit about what does that look like, right? Because I mean, we use a lot of tech here as well for multiple reasons, and there are some good partners and there are some aren't. And oftentimes it's the partners that we're looking to solve a specific need for. And when they do, that's where the magic happens and things start to work. So we were wondering, could you walk us through an example of what happens in a practice when you actually are looking for a specific thing like scheduling, right? I think it's made my life as a parent so significantly better that I can do all things from my phone. And it's just such a convenience factor. So would you walk us through what it looks like when you're looking for a solution and then you find it? Like what are the benefits that happen?
Yeah, and that's, again, every group has a little different unique case as far as what they need and the why they may be seeking additional technology. But what I think is critically important is through those conversations, through those discussions, it's not a, hey, here's what we can do or here's what we can provide. It's what is the actual challenge? What are you looking to solve? What is our actual pain point here? So the appropriate conversations that are going to be had are really focusing on what are your workflows? Where do you see the gap? And then potentially solving that problem versus, hey, here's a platform. I'm going to give it to you and you tell me how it solves your problem. Really, through those conversations, you should have a partner who can tell you, hey, it sounds like this is what's happening. Get that buy-in on both sides, and then find a common ground to not only solve that problem, but ultimately create efficiencies from that point go forward. So I think it's, again, really identifying and having a very definitive conversation about here's what we see as potentially needing a little bit of help potentially, and then getting that buy-in not only from the prospect of the office, but also getting confirmation from the partner that you're looking to move forward with.
Right. And along the journey of RCM, of the revenue cycle, you can see where there are speed bumps, to your point, where there are hangups or where things are, or if there's some points of friction. And I know, for example, like even if you just talk about scheduling for a second, like that's a critical part because it kicks off the cycle, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about financial options that we're going to talk about in the next slide, and we think about what people are looking for, especially in this conversation, it's all about how to fulfill the payment journey. And that can also start at the very beginning of RCM. So much of our history at Rectangle Health is attributed to getting offices paid faster and resolving AR. We've been doing it for almost 30 years, and it's changed so much over the years, but at the bottom, at the very baseline, which always been about expediting payments and fulfilling that revenue cycle. So could you talk a little bit about how practices are migrating to a fuller or more expansive payment and financial resolution for their patients?
Yeah. And I think it's important, again, to understand that it's no longer just a one size fits all. Everyone's unique use cases is changing day by day, and the marketplace is changing. So when we think about making it as convenient as possible, we think about online abilities, we think about text to pay, we think about storing cards on file. Those are just kind of table stakes at this point, is what I really think of being able to provide. But taking that one step further, it's options like Apple Pay, options like pay by phone and pay by watch at the clinic level. All these different things, again, just provide that additional level of experience and sophistication to the process. But last but not least, one thing that we've really heard and brought to market even is this idea of flexible payment plans. I think buy now, pay later in the marketplace related to places like Amazon and other endeavors really took off in the past 18 months. And it's this idea that consumers need or want experiences or in this case, healthcare, but sometimes don't have the financial means to pay for it at that given moment. So being a little bit agile and offering these different options, in our case, it's called Care Now, Pay Later, guaranteeing up to $5,000 for almost every patient that comes into your practice. These are different tools and options that not only give your patients additional optionality around payments, but it ensures and guarantees that not only are you going to be able to provide service, but you're going to be able to collect and receive those funds for the services provided. So I think that the big thing when we think about financial options is really that idea of optionality to guarantee every patient has the opportunity to pay how they are convenient or how they are comfortable, I should say,
Right.
in that experience.
Yep. And we're going to talk a little bit on the next slide. And there's so many ways you can insert yourself in order to get that payment or capture that payment from the patient. It could be from the front desk, to your point earlier, to even after I leave the office. And we want to make sure that at all those points, there is that convenience, that ease that takes a little bit of pressure off the office. And a lot of organizations are asking how to integrate those technologies, right? Because everything has to flow back into the patient ledger, and that's critical, right? And it's using that data in the most efficient ways possible. But it's so increasingly common to see multiple systems operating simultaneously. And we put together this slide in order to show the multiple places where you can interact with a patient, and then exactly what's happening along the line of how many pieces of information you're getting, but also how many vendors you're using. So I'm going back to that polling question, we're seeing that there's up to 5 vendors in these scenarios. And you've got to navigate these complex infrastructures. And are you seeing anything specific? I mean, this is a great visual, but what else are you seeing about or hearing from practices about how they navigate this?
Yeah, this is probably my favorite visual to share with offices, simply because I think it tells a great story. There are numerous touch points throughout the process in which there could be that collection of patient payment. And there's no one size fits all. There's no great option. Every office is going to do it a little differently. But what this image is supposed to show is you may work with 4 or 5 vendors without realizing it. And to Michelle's point, all of this is awesome, and we want to provide, again, that optionality, but without a succinct way to get that information back to our system of record, we're creating inefficiencies on the back end for our staff. So when we think about a solution like Practice Manager Bridge, what we're able to do is we're able to provide all of these different offerings, whether it be text to pay, whether it be pay in clinic, whether it be over the phone payments still, whether it be online bill pay, bulk text, so on and so forth. And we're able to build all these within a singular ecosystem for consolidation of data, and also seamless and streamlining processes to get everything back into your PM system. Because everyone, I'm sure on this call, is integrated some platform which did not necessarily create the efficiencies on the back end that maybe they were hoping. And that's a critical component to this RCM process. Is we can bring on all of the vendors that we want, but if we're causing friction or a fracture potentially within the process on the back end, we're not doing ourselves any favors. We're collecting more funds, but we're ultimately spending more time to ensure that those options or those payments are getting back into the system. So having an ecosystem built, knowing how to get payments easily and seamlessly back into your PM system is critically important. And I think that this is a good a good slide to show potentially you may be working with more vendors than what you thought, because you've got somebody for an in-clinic process, you've got somebody to allow for texting, you've got somebody for online payments, so on and so forth. So when we think about all the different vendors that you may be using, sometimes there's definitely an opportunity to consolidate multiple of those different organizations into one to improve visibility, to improve reporting, and ultimately to streamline a lot of those processes, not only for staff, but continue to do so for patients as well.
Absolutely. Really good points. And I think that we're going to dive into the next part of the conversation, which is a little bit more, we know that everyone who's on the phone has invested some way in RCM. And now we're just going to talk a little bit more about the opportunities that you can continue to think about, the moments that are key steps in the patient journey that will have the greatest impact from a clinical perspective and a business impact when you think about revenue cycle. So James, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about just what it sounds like when we invest in RCM.
Yeah, I think it really, we bring it down to these 5 things: the efficiency and the automation. When we think about creating efficiency and automation within the RCM platform, again, we want to solve as many challenges as we possibly can without creating some of these other issues. And what that looks like is we want to efficiently onboard a new technology that's going to automate the processes of, let's say, when focusing again on just patient collections, we'll say, when we think about an automated technology like a bulk text, not only are we able to mass reach a number of our patient set to collect on those different items, we're able to do so in the methodology in which most patients are looking to be communicated with. That automation, instead of having to send 50 different text messages, can all be done through one technology, one platform. And then once that payment's made, we can easily and efficiently get it back again to the system of record, having it post at the line item level, ensuring that there's a seamless back and forth between the collection, but also the posting and record keeping in your practice management system or EMR, EHR, what have you. That ultimately is going to allow us to find improved revenue. As I see it, when I first thought of RCM before really diving into kind of the pre, during, and post thought, I always thought RCM was just really how do we collect more funds faster, and that's really this idea of improving revenue. And again, the easiest way to improve revenue is give people more options. Everyone has a different methodology around how they want to pay, where they want to pay, the method by which they'd like to pay. So if we can expand on that option, we're going to expand the pie on collecting those easy revenues. And even in doing so, one way to improve revenue is simply by decreasing costs. One thing we talked about earlier was paper statements. People wanted to, how do we remove the need for paper statements? What we recommend on the Rectangle Health side of the world is we say, why not send a text message as soon as we know what a patient responsibility is, instead of getting to the process of needing to send that statement. Now, when we send, let's say 10 patients in that environment, we may collect 6 payments. There still may be 4 individuals that did not move forward with the text to pay, and that's okay. We can send 4 paper statements to meet the needs of those individuals, but we were able to collect revenue much quicker than we ever would have, and we saved ourselves significant costs because we never sent an expensive paper statement that patient may not have opened because that was not their preferred methodology for receiving or making payments. So it's just kind of rethinking the workflows around what potentially makes the most sense. Increase patient satisfaction. Again, as you increase optionality, all that's going to do is show your technical prowess within the process and improve that ideology with your patients. So that's critical. Analytics and reporting. Everything is only as good as what you can take away from the data. If we see an improvement in collections, we can see top line revenue growth. We can instantly almost give an indication as to how a solution is improving or positively impacting a business. But to take this one step further, when we think about a solution like bulk text, if we know that we send 50 text messages, we can see the open rate, we can see the paid rate, and we can see that at 9 a.m. versus if we send one at 4 p.m. Our team can start to get smarter around how do we collect more revenue through these technologies, and things like analytics and reporting only is going to enhance and continue to improve that. And then last but not least, security and compliance. I don't know if I've ever heard more about security and compliance and this idea of HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, OSHA compliance. And really, compliance is a way to secure your revenue. And what I mean by that is there unfortunately are so many pitfalls potentially within the process of maintaining and continuing compliance within a healthcare organization that sometimes it becomes a lot. Many office managers, many individuals are wearing a ton of different hats, and sometimes things like security and compliance can fall off the radar. So if there are needs for kind of some additional exposure, technologies like a solution like Office 360 can provide additional visibility and automation around these processes. So there's a lot built obviously within where you can invest in RCM software, but I think the first place is just to start being curious, start asking around, start understanding what's in the marketplace, because that's where you're going to start to understand where is our biggest opportunity to improve revenue, to create these efficiencies. It really starts with just being curious in the marketplace.
Yeah, makes sense. Then these are just some wrap-up bullets to think about when we're considering making the decision. And we're excited to hear a little bit about from the audience is what they think would be the most helpful if they were to implement something new in their technology. So would it improve scalability? Would it increase efficiencies or create more interconnectedness between systems? Do you need a user interface that's easy? Do you need that help with things like you said, James, that are difficult to get to, but there's an annual requirement to get to HIPAA compliance? Or are we really just looking to reduce overall costs? So curious to hear what our audience has to say.
I was going to say, I will note single choice. We understand that there are going to be a few of these
Right.
most likely that everyone's looking to take care of, but
Yep.
What is the most important?
Yeah, good point. All right, what do we look like? Let's see. Increased efficiencies, better integration. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so when we think about benefits of bringing in these RCM softwares, really we want to do all four of these things. We want to improve cash flow, we want to maintain compliance, boost practice revenue, we want to automate and integrate tasks, we want to bring convenient point of care payments, and then we want fewer missed appointments. So again, as I think about the RCM process, it is really a three-pronged approach. There's your pre-care. How do we secure revenue before they even come in the office? Whether that's leveraging technology to ensure scheduling is on point. We want to ensure that there's appointment reminders going out. We want to potentially collect a card on file before they even come into the chair. That's a great way to secure revenue before they even come in the office. And then once they get into the office, do we have technologies that really streamline their experience to get them through our office incredibly efficiently without feeling rushed, but giving them the dedicated support and service that they need? And then on the back end, how do we then collect on those outstanding balances through automation and giving patients these additional choices? So what a technology like Practice Manager Bridge can offer is really this ability to touch all three of those critical components, to be an extension of your practice management software. When we think about RCM, as I think about it rather, really all of these practice management systems do a great job of maintaining potentially scheduling and the patient information, all of that critical component. Allow technology to take over everything else. It doesn't have to be everything, but as long as you're kind of taking it and parceling it out, you can find that there's significant value that can be driven by technologies in the marketplace today. Again, whether it's all encompassing and you trust one partner to maintain that pre, during, and post, or if you just have somebody focused on, let's say, post-care collections. There's really great optionality out in the marketplace to really solve any problem or challenge that may be in existence for your specific practice today.
Makes sense. So if we think about these different pieces, right? And we know efficiencies are really important. How do we start to really think about which efficiencies will be critical? Is it from the billing perspective? Is it, a scheduling tool, or is it this maintaining compliance? Which of these specific areas, so that when we're going to drill down into how Practice Management Bridge operates in the next couple of slides, we can really focus on what the audience is looking for. Got it. Top
That
of
was going to be
mind.
my guess. Yep.
Awesome.
Improving cash flow. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So when we think about improving cash flow, again, I really think about this in a three-pronged approach. We so commonly focus on, hey, once we've had the experience, once they've sat in the chair, how do we collect on the payments? But I think even making sure that we're tackling on the front end, how do we ensure that they come in and actually sit in the chair is also a really, really important component of this. And obviously you can see through things like reminders, through digital scheduling, digital forms, card on file, we can secure revenue before they even come in the office. During the point of care, tools like contactless payments, payment plans, or those that care now, pay later, the financing options, all come into play. And then post-appointment, which it sounds like is the majority of our individuals who are listening today, we want to make it as simplistic as possible. Again, when we think about that, I think of making a payment via text. I think of having, from the office's perspective, how do I manage and send out a number of those in a single tap? And that's a solution like bulk text. And then being able to collect payments from online means and embedded payments within our website. And again, not to get lost within that process, but once we collect those payments, then how do we get them efficiently back to our system of record? I think that that's also critically important to improving that cash flow within the appointment cycle. So I think that kind of lends itself perfectly to kind of talk through Practice Management Bridge as we continue on here.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from the audience when they think that it would be the most critical, which critical point to those three would be the most impactful. If you were to optimize billing or payments, is it before, during, or after? Wonder what our audience is going to say. It's pretty even across the board. Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, this is the exciting part. Talk a little bit about Rectangle Health, how we help.
Yeah. So why Rectangle Health? I think this is a question that obviously I'm presented with almost every day, and really taking one step back, again, I think it's this idea that when you look at different solutions in the marketplace, one thing that I always like to reference is make sure that they're trying to solve the same challenges and same problems that you see every day. And what's important when we think about Rectangle Health is we are exclusive to healthcare. So the same challenges, the same issues that largely your practices may be trying to solve for are the same challenges that we wake up every day and we try to simplify through digitizing or simplifying the way healthcare is managed. So that's one thing that I think is critically important, to simplify the business side of healthcare. Rectangle is going to bed with the same challenges that you are and waking up with the same purpose to solve those goals. And let's explore a little bit about Practice Management Bridge. So Practice Management Bridge is really this all-in-one solution to help you capture more patient payments at the core of what it does. And the advanced platform reduces administrative burden by cutting the time spent collecting and posting payments by as much as 30%. Now, with the 30 years of experience, we've obviously had an ability to work with and help thousands of healthcare organizations automate their workflows with payment options such as contactless payments, text to pay, online bill pay, and then card on file as well. And what that offers is it's a smoother, more efficient payment process, which gives us faster payments, higher revenues, and improved patient satisfaction. Now, the platform has changed from the perspective of we're constantly developing and really looking at a solution to solve the problems of our healthcare partners. And as we hear about some of these different economic trends, whether it's needing to offer something like a care now, pay later, whether it's the need for bulk text to automate a lot of those efficiencies to collect patient payments, to reduce the need of paper statements, going the route of e-statements, all these different things are really items that we heard from the marketplace, heard from our existing partners, heard from our potential partners. And what's important about that is you want to also find the right partner who's continually expanding on their solution set. Every day, again, we wake up with the same challenges that we're trying to solve that you are. And because of that, every day we're expanding and broadening our product to solve those challenges. So it's really important to not only understand what a solution can do today, but also see kind of that forward progressing thought to make sure that you're finding the right partner for the long-term success of your business, as well as the long-term growth plan that you may have in place. And within that, just to kind of reference really quickly, within the year of 2022, Rectangle went out and acquired multiple different companies. We looked at the ability to, what are our partners and what are our clients telling us? And what they really found is there was a need on the front end side of things to ensure we were seeing smart scheduling, that we had an ability to capture that revenue pre-care. So we went out and acquired a company called RavePoint. So the ability to manage that front end as well as, frankly, the back end and the experience process through these different means. We went out and acquired a company called Reminder Call. Simple reminders, being able to go out and say, hey, there's an appointment coming up in a week. Can you confirm that appointment is going to take place? Two-way texting to ensure your staff can either take care of that if they need to make a change in their schedule, but also ensuring that the 41% of missed appointments that missed because they didn't even realize they had an appointment, we're mitigating that risk and having one person every single month improve or sit in that chair that maybe would have missed because of an appointment skip. We're increasing our revenue significantly just by using or leveraging technology. And then last but not least, securing that revenue against things like cyber threats or against compliance issues. We acquired a company called Office Safe 360, PCI HIPAA, and really the goal of that solution is to remove the burden that comes with needing all the compliance components and the ever-changing landscape. I think the first of the month, there were 3 different new compliance restrictions or requirements. And if that's on one individual within your organization, that's a lot to potentially put on their plate to ensure that they're constantly staying up on the forefront of all the different changes by leveraging technology that they, again, wake up with the same challenges of making sure that you are HIPAA compliant, you are OSHA certified, all those different components. You're constantly ensuring that someone else is managing those processes for you and that it's the correct partnership in place to ensure that those things are happening. So again, when we think about our ecosystem at Rectangle Health, we've got the ability to solve a lot of problems or a lot of challenges, but sharing a conversation with a member of our team, we're going to ask you, where do you see there as an opportunity to solve a problem or find a challenge? And then we're going to build or curate this experience through our technology to say, this is what's going to be important or impactful, we believe, for you. What do you think? And then we're going to take it back, we're going to alter it, we're going to change it, and we're going to come to you and really build out this partnership through that conversation to make sure that we're solving your problems, solving your challenges. And again, whether it's the whole process, or whether it's just a small piece of it, we're going to be able to bring to market a solution that's going to solve and streamline that process or that challenge that you brought to us. So I think, again, really important to share that conversation, to be curious, but also make sure that you know exactly what is being provided to your organization through those conversations.
Absolutely. Thanks, James. That's great. Now we have time for Q&A. If anyone has any specific questions for James or myself, we want to make sure that you get everything you can out of this presentation. So if you have questions about billing or payments or efficiencies, some of those things that are really specific that you'd like us to talk through, we're happy to answer some questions. And we really do hope that you've got some ideas on how to think about a revenue cycle in totality from beginning to end, or from when your patients come in and when they leave. We hope that was provocative so that you can think about your business in a way that you can fix any of those broken pieces or those pieces that don't necessarily fit into a smooth process. So if there are any questions, we are happy. Let me see, I think we have one come in. One thing was, James, could you talk a little bit about how we differentiate ourselves? I think you may have mentioned it a little bit towards the end there, but if you could talk a little bit about how we end up really when we go to market to being a differentiator.
Yeah, so a couple things I think that are important on this is the first being, not only can we really bring to market a solution that's specific to your challenges, but I think more so than that, our ability to discuss or have dialogue potentially with your existing practice management system is critically important within the process. So when we think of our solution Practice Management Bridge, we've got the ability to take a payment and post a payment into every single system of record, whether that's all the way down to your QuickBooks, all the way up to your largest scaled systems. And what that allows us to do is it creates efficiencies at the point of care, but also as we're collecting some of those contactless options like bulk text or text to pay or online bill pay, we can have a streamlined process to take that payment that simplified, again, the process for your patient, regardless of how they did it, and get it back to that system of record. So that's one of the unique ways that we're able to differentiate ourselves is we can really touch every single part of the rev cycle process while also ensuring that it comes at the complement of your existing systems in place. So that's one really unique thing. We don't want to negatively impact that experience as for your staff.
Awesome, thank you. And there's one other question, and I'm going to send this out to you now, and if we might need to follow up specifically, but how does Practice Management Bridge work with statement vendors like a RevSpring or a Wayfair, or is this something that might replace it and be something that is instead of?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So organizations like RevSpring and Waystar, they definitely touch parts of the process, similar to what Practice Management Bridge does. And in some cases, we can be complementary to those different solutions, depending on what your experience is and what you may like about them. But to Michelle's point, what we in many cases find is while we are complementary and we can provide additional options, in many cases, we're able to replicate a lot of the existing vendors in place to reduce the need for, again, 4, 5, potentially 6+ vendors throughout the revenue cycle process. Once we, again, prove not only our that the vendor or that relationship works, but we really prove that trust and that partnership, more times than not, we expand upon that partnership with those who we are long-term partners with. And we go from not only just being, let's say, payments partners with them to now being compliance partners and front-end partners. So we can be complementary with almost any solution that may be out in existence today. But in many cases, what we find is not only can our tools provide additional options, but they can also replace some of those different solutions that are in place today. So I know that's kind of an it depends answer, but we definitely have the ability to solve almost every challenge that the RCM process brings to market. And where we do not have a definitive solve, we have great relationships through our partners that we're able to bring in some of the best in the industries to make sure that they can solve those challenges that we may not be equipped to do so in the moment.
Yeah, and even on that question of regarding statements, right? Even something simple like even putting a QR code like you see here, there are so many ways to think through where we can help and things that we can analyze. So if we were to offer any of the folks on the phone, I mean, we were really, really focused in on billing and payments and efficiencies. And what would be the next step for someone to take if they wanted to talk with us?
Yeah, the next step to take would be to reach out directly on our website, rectanglehealth.com. As soon as you go on, there's normally a little, I believe it's a widget or an icon that will pop up that just shares, if you're looking for more information, one of our team members can reach out, and whether that's somebody on my team or one of my colleagues' teams, one of us will certainly reach out. We would love to share a conversation, again, to just be curious. Not every conversation that you're going to have is always going to materialize into a relationship, but the more you know, the more you understand of what's out there, the better your understanding of how to potentially solve problems down the road or problems today are going to be. So be curious. My direct email, I believe, is going to go out probably with this. So feel free to email me directly if you have curiosities or questions. I would love the opportunity to share a conversation and see if we might be able to help.
Awesome. Well, James and everyone on the presentation today, thank you so much for spending the hour with us. We know your time is so valuable, and we hope that you found some, like James said, some nuggets of information or some things along the way that can be helpful to you in your practice. It really does mean everything to us here at Rectangle Health to make sure that your practice is operationally healthy, physically healthy, and financially healthy. If there's anything that we can do to help, if you have any questions, please reach out, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, James, very much.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks all.